Welcome to the Fire from Two Windows podcast, where we take a deep dive into different aspects of the fire service. My name is Matt Humnicki, and I am joined with my co-host Lou Cominelli. We want to express that these are our own opinions built by experiences and education while honing our craft. These are not the opinions nor directions from our various employers. We are here on our own to spur conversation and help level the playing field for all. Good evening, Lou.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm well. What's going on? What's new?
Just got a good workout in. We good dance competitions. Vacation coming up.
Yeah? Did you come in third, or is this for your kids?
Kids, yeah. That's not me on the dance floor. Maybe at weddings.
Maybe at weddings. I had a weird thing. So I went to the gym today, and it was the first time in probably in, I don't know, 8-9 years. I went to the gym. I left my watch on the charger like all day, and I completely forgot. So I felt naked, but I've never, or I should say that I haven't not used one in that time period. Every single time I've used one. So it just felt odd as hell to not have something. I just felt like I was thrown off.
It's weird because I've never worn watches before, and I got this watch for free from one of the retirees. And working, I don't know how I didn't work out with one before. And then I get mad when I know the heart rate's off. So then I got to reset the watch, turn it off, restart it, turn it back on. So I know, but it's a tool. You know,
That's all it is. It's a tool. I started with the pedometer, and I think we talked about that before, but it was like this little thing that it helps me focus on, and that's what helps motivate me.
Yeah, my biggest thing with a watch is the main reason I wear it is to keep my time on track instead of lollygagging around in between sets. Because I hit the set button and I track my sets that way. And I think we talked about this before, but it keeps me on track where it's like, oh man, I've been resting for 45 seconds, time for my next set type of thing, instead of just getting on the phone, scrolling or whatever. It's more like, all right, when is it go time again? But it's good.
Yeah, it keeps you off the Instagram. I find when I'm doing something, it's more just the weightlifting aspect versus doing a circuit or anything like that. We're not just go, go, go. You need that resting period. You automatically, I got a minute to kill, or a minute and a half, 2 minutes, whatever your set time is. You pick up the phone. Now you're on Instagram or you're on whatever, and it gets away from you.
Yeah, with the watch and the timer, I barely pick up the phone. And it's almost I get upset when someone texts me because I feel obligated to reply back to them. Then
there's that nice little do not disturb button.
Yeah, I know.
I use it all the time. But then I forget it's on.
Then the wife texts, and then...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, got the workouts in. It's a good day overall. Today, you wanted to talk about MVAs.
Yeah, something we haven't talked about before.
No, we haven't.
We go on them. Fire departments respond to them.
A ton of them.
We go from the smallest one that the police call us for the fluid spill all the way up to person trapped or car on fire, person trapped, or even a person pinned underneath.
They had that one. It was before, I think it was the winter before I got hired. Maybe it might have been 2. But it was that 13 car pileup that they always talk about, 13, 15 car.
20 something. I think it was
Jesus, see, the numbers change in the wintertime. Winters probably our biggest nightmare to us as the responders, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But summer times when we probably also see, that's the other side. It's those two extremes where you see a ton of MVAs. You get the sun, for where we work and live, that sun, our main drags run east and west, and that summer sun, the morning sunlight comes right up in the eye, right in your eyes, and then in the evening, everybody leaving the city, heading home, it's right in their eyes. It's unbelievable.
Well, I'm curious to see how many MVA, because I saw a couple town DPW trucks out in my town when I was walking my dog. I haven't seen any in our town where we work doing cold patching. Because our winter was, in my lifetime, without having an ice storm like we had in 91 here. I think the ice storm was in 91. Yeah.
Yep, 91.
I don't remember this much ice that in my lifetime.
That we had all season long?
I mean,
okay.
I think in February, I measured it. It was... I think I measured 4 inches of ice on my driveway that I was chipping away. And it's just
amazing.
from because we would have the thaw, and then it would rain and it would snow and then deep freeze and it would rain. The ice was unbelievable this year, and you can definitely tell on the roadways. I mean, just the intersection in front of the firehouse, that seam where the two roads meet at the T, it's one big crater. And I'm curious to see if our MVAs start picking up with blown tires and things like that with these
Yeah,
potholes that we got.
we'll
I mean,
see.
I was going down 490 the other day, getting on in uh, Chile Center, and 490 from Chile Center to the town of Gates was just one big pothole on the dashed lines. So anywhere there's a seam, it's just
Yeah,
craters.
yeah, and I have to mark that down. It was somewhere. It might have been that section coming into work. I know I haven't noticed it before. I usually skip that section of the highway. It was just all craters right along. Now last year was the same. It was the other way, 490 heading towards the thruway, New York State thruway, and everything. And there was just pothole after pothole after pothole. It took the whole summer before they actually filled it. I'm sure it was bottom of their list, but these things were deep craters.
Yeah.
And for those listening, they're like down south or someplace that they don't use salt or you don't have a ton of ice. Maybe it doesn't get that cold. The ice builds up, cracks whatever surface you have. That's why we have asphalt up here. We don't use concrete just for our driveways, ironically. But in New York, specifically Western New York, we use a ton of salt to combat that ice. There is a temperature range that it will work. It'll stop working after it gets to a super deep freeze, so they stop putting it down. But that salt, so now you got the ice buildup expands, makes cracks, blows things out. The salt's coming down, that's destroying the actual material. And then as the plows are just pushing one little stone chip in the surface, it tears it up. And the next one tears it up, and the next one tears it up. So you end up with these massive craters, all over the roads. So they come in, cold patch it, and until whenever the state gives them a grant or whatever it is, however that works, they come in, they'll redo the entire surface.
Yeah, and the cold patches, one, that's if they hold, and two, they don't even have the material right now, so they're filling them in, but they're not filled in.
Yeah.
It's still a significant hole in the road.
So how does it relate to MVAs? We get these people that blow out axles, end up all over the road. I personally haven't seen that in our jurisdiction, but I have seen one small sinkhole. It's not one of the ones that swallows up a car. I think the potential was there, but actually 386 there, right in front of the Key Bank, right on the corner of the entrance of the mouthway there, that in the ambulance base, there was a hole, and we thought it was just a grate missing from, for the drainage. And we happened to just stop and look in there, and I'm surprised that the portion that maybe a 10 foot by 10 foot section of asphalt didn't cave into it, because there was nothing under it. You had your layer of asphalt, nothing underneath, because it just eroded and eroded. And so we had like the spring storm, spring melt off, plus all the ice damage underneath of it. It was amazing that road never ended up caving in on anybody.
Well, there was also last year, you guys were working and we came in during that massive rainstorm we had with the flooding.
The flooding, yeah.
And the bridge that goes over the railroad trestle, the railroad tracks, it washed out the whole side, and they had to come in with whatever size rock. I don't know the size rock that they use, but they had to beef up the side of the roadway.
Yeah, but the other towns we've seen cars get jammed in these things.
Yeah,
and now it's not okay. It's not an MVA that we're probably trying to talk about, but it's a different set of technical rescue skills that you're using, depending on how far in that car is. You've got the ground stabilization. You're almost talking a trench rescue,
right,
to a possible collapse type situation. But you're still getting somebody out of an MVA. Plus, if that car is deteriorated enough that you have to cut someone out of the car, it's kind of wild.
I shouldn't say I enjoy going on MVAs because people are getting hurt in accidents, but I mean, MVAs are part of the job, and it's better than going on an EMS call, even though it is an EMS call, for the most part. But they're also, you can come across anything when you get to an MVA. It's a hazardous materials call. It's an EMS call. It could be a technical rescue call. You got to hit. You kind of can't just treat the MVA as just, oh, it's just a fender bender, or it's just something benign. It, I remember the MVA with the tractor trailer that was dangling over the bridge. That came in as just a tractor trailer rollover, which I wouldn't say it happens frequently, but it happens enough to where you're like, people call it a rollover all the time. And usually when people say a rollover, it really means they spun out or they went off the road and they see tail lights sticking up in the air. There's been times where we've gotten calls for a tractor trailer rollover and it's just jackknifed off the side of the road. So when we got in the rig and we were first due, I think at the time the volunteer deputy chief was either right in front of us or right behind us. And we got in scene at the same time, and it was not what we expected at all.
No.
I'm not saying we weren't prepared for that, but that I didn't have that on my bingo card that day.
No, your mindset wasn't prepared to see, that wasn't what was in your mind when you were rolling up. Are you prepared for it for the technical skills aspect? Yes, I would say pretty adequate. It's just, yeah, like you said, it's on its side. What are we thinking? Busted saddle tanks. We got to get inside of this cab, like as if this thing's on its side on the roadway.
Yeah.
And for those listening that haven't heard of this thing, it was well before. This was years ago. So this was October timeframe, 2014.
Columbus Day, 2014.
Yeah. Tractor trailer, it was kind of heavy winds, went up over, it was a expressway interchange. And when it went up onto this bridge that changed from one direction to the other, the wind just caught it. It was an empty tractor trailer. I don't think anything was in that thing. Thank Christ.
Empty. Yeah.
Caused it to tip over, face, to the east, and the tractor itself went right over the edge. So this thing was hanging on the bridge by its rear set of wheels, dangling.
And the guardrail spiked the box, which kind of kept it from sliding off.
That was its anchor.
Yeah.
So you're pulling up to this thing. Holy hell! That was amazing. That was an interesting job. That was really cool.
Yeah, and some of these MVAs we go to, I mean, we haven't had them in a while, but we used to call the one small. What would you call 530? It's an expressway, I guess, or.
There is a technical term, and it escapes me because the one by my house is essentially, I always equate it to the 219 out here. I equate it to the same thing. It's our it's our version of 531. It's an offshoot of the main drag.
Yeah, we used to dub it the heroin highway because people would go into the city, score whatever they were scoring, and then they couldn't wait to get back to their houses on the west side of the county.
Or the next county
over, and they would get high in their car and overdose while they were driving and then crash their cars into wherever.
Yeah, we're talking multitudes.
Yeah. Or they would just overdose and pass out on a overdose and, code on the off-ramp sitting in their car, thankfully not crashing into anybody.
Yeah. The Elm Grove overpass there. Somebody did exactly that. Had started getting high, got to the off ramp, so coming up to Elm Grove Road, they're sitting at the red light, and it must have just hit them all at once, and they just nodded off at the wheel. It was the slowest single car accident I've ever seen, and we happened to be at that intersection as a light changed, and this car just crept out and just rolled straight ahead, and then just rested on the guardrail across the street.
Yeah.
You take a look at what's going on, we're like, hey, something's up here. You get out, sure enough, they're overdosing.
Well, and that same spot, we had a guy OD go up over the guardrail and into the swamp down there.
Mm-hmm.
And rolled his car down there, and we had to cut him out of there. So now now we're talking cutting the car just to get patient access, just to give the Narcan. Then we have to worry about get a paramedic down there because now we've given the Narcan, and then we have to cut this guy out and restrain him because he's going to come out of his high.
Yeah.
And then we got to yoke him up this hill. sometimes we use ropes on those embankments. Sometimes time isn't of the essence to use the ropes. I think we should be using ropes more often in those situations, but it is what it is. You just got to get the job done. And I think the other group just had a car down the embankment the other day.
I heard that in passing. Yeah, I didn't get the details though.
Yeah.
So respond to these things. It depends on how it comes in. Usually, it's always for accidents like that. Like so far, you've kind of hit on these things. Oh, I think a tractor trailer rolled over. I think a car rolled over. It's some other looky-loo. We call them looky-loos, but it's a passerby that calls this thing in, and of course, the next thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, I didn't stop." And so you don't know what you're really responding to. You have that in your head that it's a passerby, and we've gone to millions of these things, and it turns out to be nothing, and we don't want to fall in the complacency of treating it. It's somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. That is a terrible thing to do. I think we do a pretty good job of not accepting that level. We still respond as if this thing is rolled over, it's on fire, whatever. And I'd rather, and we tend to downgrade as we see it firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, every time job comes in as a person trap job, I'm always expecting the worst there is until I get on scene.
And we've seen some of the worst.
Yeah, I mean, we've had
those
some
natures.
Yeah.
Did we talk about I can't remember. Did we talk about on this the triple? Well, it was a double, but the one that when you were in the MTO.
Which one?
The head-on. There was the double fatal with the other car. It was a
yeah.
Did we talk about that?
We might have. When I was working overtime during the officer class.
Yes.
And and I believe so because I think we hit on it, but it was good to go over it again. I mean, we essentially had it was one MVA, but we had two scenes because the cars ended up so far apart from each other. And in both cars, both cars had occupants trapped. The one was a pickup truck with a sealing tank, like a driveway sealer tank on it. And the other one was just a sedan with an elderly couple inside. Sadly, both of them succumbed to their injuries from the head-on, and the guy driving the truck with a sealer tank, he survived. But we ended up having essentially a second alarm assignment on this call for, we had a person trap assignment for the one sedan with the two patients, and then we had a person trap assignment for the pickup truck because just due to the distance of where they came to rest. There's no way to shuttle tools back and forth. I mean, they were close to about 100 yards away when they stopped.
That one, do you recall how that one came in? Our crew was it was my group working that day. It just happened to be you were the first arriving unit, if you wanted to.
What I can remember, the pickup truck was on a cell phone, I believe, and crossed over.
No, I mean, do you remember how the job came in? How got it dispatched?
Oh.
So just 2-car MVA, possible people trapped?
2-car MVA, people trapped. I think one said it might have came in. One was people think they're dead. Or not breathing.
I remember the brain shift from whatever was on that screen or whatever came over the dispatch. It sounded like a people trapped. That was the kind of how the brain just naturally gravitates to. Okay, we got a people trapped assignment. We're going to be cutting. So, okay, we're not using SCBA on this one. We know we're going to be needing the glass. You go through these little checklists as the backseat guy. I need the extrication gloves, not fire gloves. I need safety glasses, not, goggles or whatever else you put on. But you arrived and your voice, I've never heard it since that way. Your voice it sounded like something was up. You knew something was completely different from whatever that dispatch sounded.
And I think it was also because I was running, because people were waving us. The sedan was farther away. So we drove past the pickup truck because there was people waving and trying to gain entry with their bare hands into the sedan. So I told the engine to get to that one first because it looked worse, which it was. So as the firemen went to work, I ran like 100 yards to the other pickup truck and kind of did a quick triage on that guy. And I'm not saying I wasn't, my voice didn't sound excited because I listened to the audio and I kind of sounded a little too excited, but I think a lot of that might have been because I was running. And that's when I radioed back in. I said, we have two vehicles, two people trapped. And we already had one rescue coming from our neighbors to the north. And I immediately started the rescue out of the city because we needed resources.
I just remember your initial size up. Even the boss in the front seat of the rig that I was on turned around and said, this has to be really, really fucking bad. And I like, it sounded even kind of the hair stuck up on the back of my neck, but he's like, if Louis is talking like this has to be really bad. That's exactly his word for word. So we just kind of prepared we didn't know what we were coming into, but we knew it wasn't going to be what we're used to seeing.
Yeah,
that was wild.
My mindset wasn't prepared for two vehicles on their side with one person already succumbed and one potentially going to succumb. And the one that when we got they were alive while we were cutting them out, but they were alive because of crush syndrome. And then as soon as we cut the person out,
released,
they were dead in within 5 minutes.
Not the only time we've had more than one patient or more than one victim that has succumbed to injuries, whether DOA or during the process of extrication. We've had a few, but we look back to all these things. We do a lot of after action reports, primarily for fires, but we've started to do this over the last 5-6 years, even for MVAs, especially ones of this level, this critical level, to the point where we've gone back to our standard operating guidelines and some of our policies on how we're going to behave at these calls. I'm not talking about our language and our body movement, nothing like that behavior. I mean, what is that one? The first arriving engine is going to be pulling a line, regardless type of thing, or an engine will be. And that one, I'd like to hit on that one because I see so many other districts and agencies who they go to these wrecks of all sorts of different proportions with maybe there's some hazardous materials, maybe there's not. Gasoline spills, saddle tanks broken. There's no active fire, but because we're told that this call or this thing gets coded as MVA, MVAIA or whatever the code that comes over your transmission system, you get stuck in this. We're going for spreaders. We never consider pulling a line. And this shifted our behavior that, we're still getting those tools out. But somebody in that stack, as the apparatus are starting to line up and pull up, we're going to be pulling a line. I think we've done a fairly good job at that.
Yeah,
and
I think
it's
so.
starting to catch on all over the place. But I see that more often not getting stretched, a line not getting stretched, and that protective hand line not happening. Nobody's thinking even putting a can out there or an ABC, dry chem. Nothing. Is that something that you would recommend regardless, or is that just a practice we fell into because that's something that we discovered in our findings?
I mean, early on at my first chief, he would go up one side of us and down the other if he got on scene of a pin job and a line wasn't pulled. So that was beaten into our heads early on in my career. And then as a fireman, I kind of got a habit of every MVA I went to, I would just bring the dry chem just in case, especially with any head-ons, because there was a string of accidents that we had where, and this goes back to another policy we have now, where we pull batteries on all head-ons. Any front end damage, we're pulling batteries, and this is because we had a couple less than 5 where batteries didn't get pulled. The tow operators get there a little bit later. They start towing the vehicle, and now we have a car fire on top of the tow truck. And I can remember there was one car fire on top of a tow truck that we responded to, and then there was a car fire in the junkyard after the MVA from the MVA earlier that day. We were working 10s and 14s, and the day shift had an MVA, didn't pull the battery because that wasn't our policy. Car gets towed, gets put in the lot where, wherever the towing company was, and that night something happened. Electrical fire from the crash caused a car fire in the lot. So
Yeah.
now we pull battery. So I made it always an effort as a fireman, not so much as a boss now, that I would just at least bring the dry chem with me and just set it at the front of the vehicle as a first in unit.
That policy making, it's really interesting how that develops. The genesis of that, like that was essentially, it's all internal. The accident was in town, and then a different shift responded to the junkyard, which also happened to be in the same town at the time. It's no longer there, but all these things happen to be in the same area. Can you imagine going if you didn't have a district like ours that did not have a junkyard in town, or even a lockup at let's say it's a small car accident, and for whatever reason it decides to get temporarily impounded at, or whatever they call it, it's held in lockup at like a collision joint, and then it catches fire. Well, most of those places, not every town has that joint in their own town. So we might have a car accident. Let's say we didn't have one. We have the car accident. We don't pull the battery, or we don't take care of some of those hazardous materials. Goes on a flatbed, goes to another town, another county, who the hell knows. And then that local agency has to go for a car fire. They never marry up that this originally started from something that we could have prevented way at the beginning. That's another thing that kind of, just something I've seen. I've observed that it's like, hey, there's just not everybody has a junkyard in town where everything goes there. So this policy never gets adopted, or it's never even thought about.
And with pulling batteries, now if the car's totaled, we're just clipping the battery cables. Right. There's no point. But if it's just a little bit of front end damage, and there's this, damage to the headlights or some sort of a lot of the computer systems now are up front near the headlights. So if there's front end damage where there's electrical components that have been compromised, a 10 millimeter wrench, almost every fireman carries them in their pockets now. I almost stole one from one of the guys on your group. I didn't mean to. But 10 millimeter wrench, you take the negative off, you take the positive off, curl them down in so they're not touching the battery terminals anymore. Because a lot of times the tow truck drivers want the batteries intact.
Yes. Yep.
Because a lot of these cars have the electric parking brakes on them.
And I'm coming to find, just with the recent looking at a few vehicles, a lot of them are now automatic. So when you put it in a park, that electric brake clicks on.
Yeah.
Something I just started clocking. So I've been kind of going around figuring that one. I think it's in our repertoire as firefighters or fire departments anyway, is to cut batteries, but it always hasn't been for all MVAs or just front ends, right? You and I right now, what we mean by front end damage is that we didn't have to cut this person out of the vehicle. There's front end damage where they're essentially for a fluid spill. And oh, by the way, there's this damage to the front end. We're gonna remove that battery, at least separate power from the rest of it. That doesn't mean we had to extricate them. I think if you're getting out the spreaders and everything, we're in the habit of cutting batteries or at least securing power when we're doing extrication, but it's not because of a car fire that's at the front of our mind. It's the airbags.
Right.
Right. So we tend to go, I didn't have to cut anybody, or I don't have to get the tools out to pop this door or break through, cut through an airbag, so I don't have to, right? And that's kind of one of those things we might have to start retooling and rethinking overall.
That was also a big policy we were kicked around with our last chief about, because he was a big stickler on securing batteries at cut jobs. And me and the lieutenant that works on the truck, if we got on scene, we would hold off on cutting batteries or disconnecting the battery until we absolutely needed to, because a lot of the seats are electric.
Yes.
So if we want to gain space as much as we can, we're going to use that 12-volt system to move that seat as best of our advantage as we can. Some of the even steering wheels now are adjustable by the motor.
It's only electric.
Yeah. So sometimes holding off on disconnecting the battery can save you a little bit of trouble with extricating the patient just by moving the seat, moving the steering wheel.
Yeah. So we've gotten a habit that regardless of the fender benders, we don't necessarily pull that line for a fender bender. You know, if the boss gets off the rig, walks up to the vehicle while we're getting our tools off, and then goes, "Hey, let's pull a line," overrides that for a fender bender. By all means, we pull a line. If it's something that's going to be, we know for sure pulling up that we're doing extrication, we automatically get a line started. It may not be that first arriving, but somebody on that scene is pulling a. It's not stretching a dry line. They get that thing out and they charge it. You know, we carry 500 gallons. Let's rough shot this 500 gallons on every rig. One of the Quints has 470. The other one's got, is it 300 even? You know, it's enough to at least protect the guys in the moment. If that's all you got.
Yeah.
So that's item number one on my soapbox. Pull the damn line for extrication.
I would say one of my biggest soapbox for extrication in these jobs is there's enough damage on the driver's side door where the driver's side door doesn't open and the driver's trapped.
Mm-hmm.
And our brothers in blue or the ambulance people get there like, oh, let's just take them out the passenger side.
We just had this.
Yeah, I was working that night.
I always wondered if this is.
And one, these cars now, it's not like your what the family truckster in Family Vacation where it's a bench seat anymore. The old station wagons or pickup trucks where it was just one big bench seat in the front where you could slide some, you know, you could. It was a couch in the front with seatbelts that nobody used. There's a center console there. There's computers there. There's whatever's in that center console now because it's filled with stuff, and then car manufacturers keep putting more stuff in there. To get some of these people over that center console is more work than just cutting the damn door. Spread the door, cut the hinges. Now you have a complete patient access.
Yeah.
I never understood. Oh, we'll just take them out the passenger side door. We got the tools right here. We spent those tools are $8,000. Let's use the $8,000 tool that the citizen paid us to train on and purchase and keep up. The car's already damaged. The car's already totaled. Let's just cut the door off and let's do less harm to that patient. Who knows what type of internal injuries they have? And if they do have internal injuries, what are we doing to them, hucking them over the center console?
Yes, and I heard at one of the recent calls where this is prime example of exactly where I think that's where you're getting this from. It wasn't just the guy, you know, the men and women in blue. It was also some of the other agencies that were involved. They're like, hey, you know, the patient said that they're fine, no injury. We're just going to get them out, climb over, and have them come out the passenger side. They said they can do it. They're free. They're not trapped. That door was so damaged, you know, and it doesn't matter even in a hypothetical, if that driver's door is so damaged, you don't get that from a 5-mile-an-hour crash, right? So we have a high mechanism injury that we cannot account for any internal, as you mentioned, any internal damages. So we need to treat that with the full gambit for the patient safety. You know, every single one of these patients that they don't have the neck pain in the moment, but you get them out once they're in the ambulance and everything, all of a sudden things start to stiffen up, right? You start getting that inflammation, you start getting that thing. Now all of a sudden the back hurts. Regardless, you still have to treat it all the way through until we can positively identify that there is no injury. We can't really do all the, you know, internal bleeding and all that. We can't do that on the scene.
Yeah, this person
for the most part.
Pinballed off of somebody. I don't remember where that second car was, but pinballed off of somebody and then bounced into a mail truck and ended up underneath a mail truck.
It was a straight box truck.
Yeah.
It was a U.S. mail truck, but it was a box truck.
Yeah, she ended up underneath it. I mean, luckily she didn't get wedged underneath it where the passenger compartment wasn't underneath, just the engine compartment was.
Yeah.
But they had enough damage to the driver's side door, like you said, where they could have had internal injuries or some sort of nagging other injuries. And she could have had a broken bone for all we know. And just being in the MVA and the adrenaline dump is going to mask that injury.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And then once we did pop that door and we freed her, okay, now she stands right up. And as soon as she stood up, now the initial patient care, when somebody climbed through to check her out, scope her out, she did not have that. She didn't have anything. She had a small gash in her face, or like her forehead. Okay. So we got some sort of injury. By the time it took us to figure out our plan of action and she get out, and we're talking less than 6 minutes to get that door completely removed, come up with a plan, get that door removed and get her standing. That thing doubled, all of a sudden she had this goose egg. And in fact, it was so large. It was a goose egg with an egg on top of it on her forehead. It was incredible. That had just from post accident had started to develop. Again, we can visualize that. We can see that. We don't know what's going on inside. So why take that risk of just, like you said, hucking her up over the center console? No way.
Yeah.
No way. It ended up it played out really well. She got the care she needed. She was okay. Essentially minor bumps and scrapes. Thank God. But it looked uglier than it really was. But you have to treat it as the worst case.
Yeah. The other thing with it, another pet peeve of mine is it seemed, I love taking training. I love going to classes. I love seeing the new, not tips, or tricks. But you go to these training sessions, they show you techniques and stuff like that. To me, I look at when they show you these intricated techniques at these MVAs. There's these people that really get into the stuff. It's like how some people really get into ropes, or some people really get into trench, or any other technical rescue. There are people that really, really get into motor vehicle accident rescue. I look at those as, I can use that tool in this. That tool is capable of doing a lot more than what we just use it for. And it gives that tool a little bit more, the words, it's not in my mind right now, but clout, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. It's almost like we developed these, no different than medication. It's an off-label use.
Yeah.
Right. Spreaders are designed to spread a piece of metal across, but it's a piston driving, so you can lift with it as well.
And that's
some dash rolls.
That's pretty basic. My pet peeve though is, and we send guys to training and it's awesome. And it always seems like we get an MVA where, I saw this technique at this training. Let's break out. And we've talked about this before with our rope rescue talk. Let's break out every tool that we have on the rig to effect a rescue, when all we need to do is pop a door or cut the roof off. They want to do this tension tie back system with this intricate dash roll and all this other stuff. So guys, pop door.
Keep it simple.
Keep it as simple as possible.
Again, patient care. We got to get them out the most efficient way, but with some speed.
And when you do trainings, you should do both. Mm-hmm. You should do the very intricate, let's break out all the tools and equipment and all the tricks and all the fun stuff, and let's wow, if a guy hasn't seen it, let's do this. I've never seen this before. But then you also have to do the down and dirty as fast and as efficient and as safe as possible. We're going to pop this door. We're going to cut the ABC post. We're going to lift the roof or fold the roof, however you operate. And then we're going to get out the patient for time, because that's what we're there for. We need to get the patient out of the car as fast and as safely as possible.
Yeah.
The time on the job is that when the MVA comes in at 3 a.m. is not the time to try out the new technique that you saw in a training class or a YouTube video.
I agree.
And I witnessed that and it was no fault to the firemen working that day. They were on overtime on a rig that carries the stuff, but the boss told them to set up a system to secure a work van, and the way the boss wanted it ran, the firemen had the pieces of equipment in their hands. They're like, I have no clue what I'm doing here.
Yeah, they have not yet reached that level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we said, going down to our rundown of our basics for MVA responses. So we know we got a protective handline. We have to consider that it may not be the first thing off. It kind of falls somewhere near the beginning for us, just because of the amount of response we're getting, but we do get the handline down. Patient assessment is obviously the first thing. How many patients do we have? How many do you see? How many were reported? Because you could have an ejection. The location of that vehicle, so everybody knows. So we confirm. No different than when you're going to any address. You need to confirm the location of that vehicle. We got to confirm: is this the one that we were actually called to, or did we roll up on a second one by accident? No pun intended. Those are good things to. That's kind of more of a boss perspective. So we got patient access to begin with. Can we tell what that patient's doing, what their stability is like, and what kind of help and resources we're going to need? Because that entire extrication operation that starts to unfold is really to get the next level of a professional in there to start treating or stabilizing that patient. It's access. Patient access always comes down to, as much as it's a technical rescue, cool. It's really, really cool shit to do as a fireman. We have to remember that it's all revolves around an EMS component. So some places have EMS built into the system, some don't even do EMS at all, but you're there to support the medical side to gain patient access, or patients multiples, depending. Big part of gaining access, if you can't access them directly, like open up a door. Okay, I got somebody asleep at the wheel. Can I open that door? The moment we start getting those tools out, especially the power tools, we have to worry about stabilization. So if it's on all four wheels, making sure they're chalked, maybe we crib, depending on what our next moves are. If it's on its side, before we start taking that roof, can we keep this thing from rocking and rolling? Either on us from the working side or away from us on the dirty side. Typically we go at the roof side, and that's our plan of attack, but the dirty side being the bottom side of the car. Do we have that thing stabilized so it doesn't roll over? And the more you train on these, the more it just kind of all falls into place. One unit or task group gets assigned each portion, and it just happens, the beehive mentality or the anthill, whatever. That's big, making sure you secure that stabilization and constantly monitoring it. I think that's a big place where we fail a lot. We get so going, okay, yeah, we stabilized, and we start going with the tools. So when we're loosening that metal, we're removing some metal. By the time you're done, that car's freewheeling. It's like, oh shit, nobody went back around.
You take a door off. How heavy are these doors? You've just even a car on four wheels. You've stabilized the car with a couple step chocks, and you take the door off. Now you've reduced the weight of the car, and the strut system on the car is going to lift the car up higher. Now you're not on the step chocks anymore. So just a quick tip is securing the struts with a piece of webbing or a ratchet strap going from tire to tire over the top of the hood.
Yeah.
But you mentioned,
and that's only one method.
Yeah. You mentioned felt like I've been on a couple of them where you have the drunk MVA, and as they're interviewing the driver, or anybody else in the vehicle, and they give you the I don't know. And it's like, now I got to search for, if this vehicle's been in a rollover or whatever. But one tool that you can use is your thermal imaging camera.
Yep.
And I'm not saying you go searching for the patient with your thermal imaging camera. You take the thermal imaging camera and you look at the passenger compartment. You look at the seat, the front seat. You look at the back seats. That if a person was sitting in that car, they will leave a heat signature in that car for a good amount of time. And that's a good drill just to show your guys. I could go right now and take a thermal imaging camera and point it at the chair that I'm looking at after 5 minutes of sitting in it, and there'll still be a heat signature in this chair.
Yeah, good drill is you get on the intercom right now. When you're at shift, get on the intercom, go, hey, Chief's in the house. They'll get up from the recliner, and you go in with the thermal imaging. You could tell which one they were sitting in.
Right. Yeah.
But that's a good one. The heat signature. We have, we mentioned our winters and everything. We've had times where in some of these storms where a car will not be discovered until the weather starts shifting or there's a clear spot in some of the whiteouts. Then that car is recognized. And these people could have been down that embankment or into that ditch for quite some time. That's a whole nother thing. Is the car still running? Is it buried up to the muffler and still on? Now we start considering what else is at action. Are they asphyxiating inside? Did they have a medical emergency prior to the crash? Are they freezing because they ran out of gas? The car doesn't turn on, so now they're freezing. Whole nother aspect to consider as well.
The one thing I saw was pretty interesting. It was not far. It was the police side. They're showing how to properly park a police cruiser on the side of a road. And they're saying, do you cant the police cruiser out towards traffic, or do you pull up straight onto the person on the side of the road?
Right. So it's perfectly parallel with the road, is what you're saying.
Yep. And they had simulated car crashes like into the police cruiser that was blocking for the traffic stop or whatever they were doing. And now a police cruiser is a lot lighter than a fire truck.
A lot cheaper too.
A lot cheaper. But with a police cruiser pulling straight on was a lot safer than the police cruiser canting the front end out towards traffic.
Really?
Yeah, because what happens is you would think that the car would bounce off and go
ricochet or something.
Ricochet. Yeah. It wouldn't. What happened was what they're showing is that because it was canted, it would actually spin the police cruiser and spin it into where they were performing their traffic stop. To where if it was dead on or just off, off the shoulder just a little bit, still in the lane. If it was just a rear end collision, then all the police cruiser does is go forward and not spin.
I didn't consider that. I know they still teach the, turn the wheel.
Yep.
As well. So you're straight. The vehicle is straight, but you turn the wheel. And if you ever ridden in a vehicle, especially again, wintertime, where it's trying to go forward, but your wheels are turned, but it's still going forward. Mm-hmm. You have that because you're going from no speed to all of a sudden a huge impact and it's flying forward. That inertia, your wheels aren't going to actually turn that vehicle and roll it into traffic or away from traffic, at least until the speed comes down. Once that impact hits, it's still going forward.
No, I don't think that's going to happen with a fire truck.
Not a fire truck. No,
I mean, we're still going to cant ours out because it's going to take up space and provide a good block for us.
Yes.
The mass wins, and the fire truck has more mass than your typical sedan on the road.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. So where I live, the police will call, even if it's a lot in the wintertime, if they have to do some sort of, it's just a police activity up on the expressway or something in the wintertime, they might call for that action. Again, this isn't a medical thing. It's not a fire thing. They might call the fire department for a blocker. You could also utilize your highway department, they're probably in the wintertime, they're out there plowing. But if you do have something where police have to initiate a stop, they'll start calling. Hey, they just need a hunk of steel behind them. And they do that quite often. That's a pretty cool relationship that they've developed. They're like, hey, yeah, call them for a block. Get me a blocker is all they say. And that just triggers, call the fire department. They're going to send an engine or a rescue out there. If you're not doing anything besides riding up there and parking, so they give you the wave off and you're good to go. That's pretty interesting. There's
some department, I think it's in Texas, that bought like an 18-wheeler just for that.
Just a hunk of steel.
Yep.
That's a really cool thing that they've developed. I did notice. I could give them props for that. At our job, we don't really, not for police issues. They don't call us for, like, if they're conducting a traffic stop up on during rush hour, they typically don't call us. But however, we do have, what do we call those? The
help trucks.
The help truck. Yeah. State funded help trucks and everything. Everybody thinks it's owned by State Farm, the State Farm truck, but no, State Farm sponsors it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a state vehicle. DOT vehicle will pull up. They throw the signs up and they act as a blocker. It's usually like a 3,500, a 3/4, a 1-ton pickup truck.
Well, state troopers also have the goalposts now here.
I did see that. Yeah, like they usually, like I think police down by New York City have them.
There's a
Way
couple
back,
up
I remember
here.
noticing those, and now we're seeing them up here.
And by what I mean by the goalposts, they have these two arms on top of the car's roof that extend upward. They got to be what, 6 feet?
Yeah, almost as long as the roof is, yeah, or as wide as the roof is. That's the length, and
Yeah,
it swings up, straight up, and they light up.
and yeah, they look like goalposts on the side of the road with
Mm-hmm.
very bright lights. And I think there's only one department here, and we try to get it. I mean, it would have boosted our run numbers a lot and put a lot more wear and tear in the vehicles, but we try to do this. There's one department that still does it where they send their ladder truck out just to block for the engine on the expressway. So it could just be a minor MVA on the expressway, and they're sending two rigs, and one rig is just solely the block. They don't even get out of the rig.
There you
They
go.
just pull up, park, block, and then the first due engine does whatever they need to do, and then to go back in service.
Yeah, it's hectic out there. We read for those that subscribe to like the firefighter close calls or the secret list. You're getting them once a week, maybe, and we get all the information about police officers as well getting hit up on the expressway. Expressways are absolutely dangerous, but that's not to say they can't happen on a state highway or a busy road in town either. It's everywhere. Take these considerations, and we're not even talking about just MVAs. This is some other condition off the side of the road, broke down car. We've gone to stuff like that too. Hey, I think my car's smoking. And I pulled over to the side of the road, and it's middle of rush hour. We pull up because now we're going to treat that as they said the magic word, something smoking. We get, oh boy, get the hoses.
Yeah.
We're thinking it's a car fire. It's not. They just burning coolant or something. But now
There's
we're
no
up there
oil
trying
in
to
there.
mitigate this. Yeah, where there's no oil, which usually ends up, it's always a parking lot where the no oil car turns into, complete flaming ball in the middle of it. But, we still pull up, we block, run it through. We're on that expressway. It's not an MVA. It's nothing. It's not a medical emergency, but we're up there in the middle of rush hour all the time.
Popping flares.
Putting out a ton of flares. Now you got a guy walking behind the canted vehicle all the way back, trying to direct traffic. It's even shittier when we're on a curve.
Yeah.
With cars are flying up, coming up to this curve. They don't got enough time to react to it. That's super tough.
Yeah, MVA. You could get into anything on the MVA. Anything from the irate. That MVA that we had that you're talking with the mailbox truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we were clearing, there was an MVA from a road rage incident just on the off ramp
due to the congestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an insane night, and that was before the clocks. Yeah, because it was getting dark early, so it was before the daylight savings time.
Yeah.
So it's darker earlier, and it was pretty dark at that time, and rush hour traffic. That was a wild night. And that accident happened in the middle of the highway. It was locked up right in the center lane.
Yeah.
So now we're operating in the middle of it. It takes a lot of resources. Other considerations for safety, we're not trying to make this the safety podcast per se, but other things to pull out there that we're seeing either not happening or have not yet developed yet for good operations. So such as pulling the hand line. Again, not on everything, but have that consideration in case something does combust later on or into your operation. What else? Anything else that's along that nature?
I mean, the biggest thing is what's coming out now is with the EV vehicles. But hopefully we get your buddy on there. We're both in that class, this battery class that's coming up in a month. But from what I've seen with the EV vehicles is that everything's pretty clearly labeled of what not to touch and what to touch. There's a lot of good resources you can get on your phone. If your department has truck phones, they should be on the truck phones. If you don't have truck phones, there's there's been MVAs where we can't find the battery, and I Google where's the battery on a 2022 Chevy Traverse? And AI tells you it should be right here.
Yeah, Google, just Google something. It comes up really, really quickly. There was something, man, I'm going to throw that out there and be ill prepared, but there was an app as I was at that conference a couple weeks ago. We got talking to each other after hours, and one of the apps, I believe it had something to do with an electronic version of a fog manual, and this site that you can go to where it interacts really, really well mobily. So instead of having just a PDF that you're reading through and trying to flip through, there's actually a digital version where you can click, click, click. It gives you essentially your whole entire fog manual. Well, then you can go to an index where there's other books or other documentation essentially that's put into an application format. And one of them I just happened to know was for specific EV cars. So like
Yeah.
Tesla's, all this stuff, it captured everything that Tesla puts out on their website, and it pulls every single day. It just updates and it pulls and puts it right into that app. I apologize. I caught myself off guard, so I'm going to have to look that up and get back to you on what that is. But I was playing around with that because there used to be one maybe 6 years ago. It stopped. It just disappeared. It was like all things EV vehicles. It might have been a little bit longer than that, actually.
I think the app actually was the EV app because a lot of guys had it on their phone.
It was awesome. But at the time, there were only like, let's say, 3 manufacturers that had EV cars. Now
like
everyone's
it was like the Prius, the Volt, and maybe some other one.
That, and then there was like stuff for airbags for because Mercedes was one of the ones that put in 1 million airbags first. There was a little bit in that as well. And then that disappeared. I think it just must have been a background coming up with funding to keep that thing going. But now everybody's got EVs or hybrids, at least.
Yeah.
How many times do we roll up freaking the one that I'm always constantly Googling is any Jeep product. You go to a Jeep Compass or Cherokee, every couple of years, the battery changes positions in the vehicles depending on the year. It's like, oh my God, I can't, So you have to quick Google. Now you look like a dope on the side of the road, but you got to do it for the quick access, but you look like you're Googling your job on the side of the road. That doesn't look good, but.
Last thing, I don't know what you had. We're kind of bouncing around here, but the compressed gas cylinders, like you see on hatchbacks or in trunks, for the longest time, it was like, don't cut them. Be very careful around them. And my experience with them is as soon as that saw blade, if you're using a Sawzall or if you're using cutters, as soon as you puncture it, the gas just leaks out, and then it doesn't become a compressed gas cylinder anymore. And they're inert at that point. So it is safer to cut a gas cylinder on the hatchbacks or on the hood system if they have them, or on the trunk system, than to mess around with them and trying to spread them. So a lot of times you try to spread them, you pop them, and that's when they pop off and can create a hazard.
Where you really got to be good with it and cautious is when you're taking the glass, if it's something that swings up.
Yeah.
So it's usually the glass panel that flips. So let's think like Tahoes are good. That's the only one that comes to my mind right now.
Jeep Wrangler.
Jeep, that one's got so if you broke your glass on the back of your Jeep Wrangler, that thing's going to fly straight out at you because the piston, that rod is, it's captured connected somewhere on the frame and then straight to the glass itself.
Straight to the glass, yep.
So you're getting a shard of glass on the end of an extending rod coming right at you. That's probably more the safety concern than anything else these days. I haven't seen one fly off.
The last one I saw fly off is we had it was a hatchback Prius, and it was on fire, and the bulk of the fire was in the 12-volt battery, which is in the back, in the hatchback. Mm-hmm. So these compressed gas cylinders were under fire impingement, and this thing launched probably a good 30 yards.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. But,
yeah, even like the gas cylinders for the airbags, though, too. Once they break,
Oh,
I haven't seen one
just
do
cut through them.
significant. Yeah, I haven't seen one do significant. It'll scare the hell out of you.
I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. This isn't this end all be all, but the peel, the what they
Peek
call
and
the
peel.
peek and
Peek and
peel.
peel.
I'll peel off some of the interior, but I'm not too. If I see a compressed gas cylinder for the airbag, that I'm not worried about that at all. The car's not on fire. I'm gonna cut right through that just like it's anything else. It's gonna leak a little bit of air, and then it's not gonna explode. I've cut many. I couldn't put a number to it of these gas cylinders, and they don't explode. You puncture them, and they piss the air out, and then that's it. The biggest thing, what I'm looking for, is the hardened bolts, because those will ruin spreaders.
Oh yeah.
Or if you're going
your
at
O
it with a
cutters.
saw, that's what I meant, the O cutters.
Okay.
And if you're going at it with a sawzall, you're going to be there all day cutting. It's just not going to. They're not going to cut through it. And those are on, look on the seat belts or whatever hardened steel there is.
For those same gas cylinders, again, it's kind of taking into consideration what that thing is designed to do. It's to blow off an airbag. So if you have a car that you're approaching, you do a peek and peel, you see it. That doesn't mean just, a lot of people might cut below it or above it, where, whatever the line is in between, to try to avoid that cylinder. Well, take a look. Is that curtain airbag, it's usually for the curtain. If that curtain airbag has not deployed, you cut that line, you could activate that airbag. That's the big concern. And how do we mitigate that? We remove the battery or disconnect the battery. Now, give it a little bit of time, and it could be 30 seconds. It could be 20 seconds, 30 seconds, up to 2 minutes, depending on what the capacitor inside is. But that's how you deactivate that. Now, yeah, you can cut right through that cylinder, no problem. But cutting through the cylinder, even if it is still under power, shouldn't activate like you said, you're piercing it, gas escapes, can't do its job. But you cross some of them wires, it could activate that. And we demonstrated that in a class not too long ago. I have it on video, so that would be a good thing to put up at some point, where you can show, hey, even without power, we can find a way, we can accidentally cross something that might still have an electric charge, sets off all the airbags. And all we did was connect the two lines, and I think it was like a C post or D post on a Subaru, and it blew off all the curtain airbags. So it was actually pretty cool. It was like a cartoon.
I haven't confirmed it because I've never seen it ever done, but I've been told that even a cell phone being plugged in and charging can backfeed the electrical system and set the airbag off, even if
I suppose
it's one of those things I've
heard.
Electrical charge. It's one of those things I've heard. It's just like, okay.
I mean, I set off a whole car just connecting a 9-volt battery.
Yeah.
So cell phone, yeah, I could see it, maybe. But through its you're talking about like through its regular USB port.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it was more prevalent when it was the old cigarette port charger.
12-volt port, could be. Or some home job, added into the car after the fact, aftermarket. That's what the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
How about the pistons since we're on kind of hitting around pistons in the bumpers? We've all seen those old videos where the bumper pistons heat up and freaking fire out at you. Cars don't manufactured with those anymore.
They don't make them with those pistons anymore.
So
it's all foam.
Would you say there's still a danger approaching a car straight on, from the front? Or I know we still practice, we still teach it, come at it from a 45-degree angle. Is there another reason we should be still doing the 45-degree angle?
I would just say because of not the bumper pistons, but because of if there's the pistons for the hood system, or like we said, with the pistons for the rear hatch system or your trunk, because they're pointing straight out. That would be my only concern. But anyway, there are those old videos of those car fires, and you see the bumper get launched like a video game.
There's that classic one that they've shown, and it looks like late 80s VHS tape, or a newscast. And it's the guy, it's at a gas station, the bumper lets go, you see parts flying, and then there's the guy who's got the rod in his leg, right through his shin. Yeah, they
Yeah.
still show that in the classes, which is amazing because the class has been updated, but the video hasn't.
Yeah. And MVAs, you could run into anything on these things.
Work vans, work vans are tough.
Yeah.
We've found so much, anything from an empty work van to a bunch of we'll say under the table workers in the back, and they have every tool imaginable packed in there with them. So when that thing tumbles, it's a washing machine, but there's no space for things to tumble. So when you open up or cut a door or something, they're packed in there still. Nothing has moved because it's so tight. So you have to start removing the items one by one to gain access. It's
Yeah.
not a matter of cutting this thing open. It's a matter of pulling apart their Tetris mobile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind of wild.
Yeah.
Gasoline is a big one, or any of the fuel rather. Be prepared. Consider the alternative routes of where that stuff's going down. So if we mentioned the saddle tank, that's a lot of gallonage, but even just a small passenger car that might have a 12 gallon or up to 20 gallon tank, if that's just starting to spill away, again, we're there to treat a patient first, the issue, mitigate the hazards on the thing. Still taking the considerations where that thing's running off. Is it going into the storm drain? Is it going into a little creek? We might
Just
have
a
to
little bit of
dike and
speedy
dam.
dry. Yeah.
Speedy dry works great.
There's one. It's not on the tip. It's on the tip of my tongue right now. I can't remember which manufacturer for the big rigs out there it is, but one manufacturer has a fuel pump where the other ones are gravity fed. And we had an MVA mutual aid head on with a tractor trailer, and it was a gravity fed fuel system. And we had to kind of mitigate the fuel line because there was 50 gallons of diesel fuel being spilled on the road.
And what was your mitigation? Just a crimp on the line?
Yeah, we just crimped
vice
it.
grips?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are great things. Yeah, probably everybody's got a set of vice grips on their thing with a chain for forcible entry. Throw those on there. Golf tees work great. Cut a line, jam a golf tee in. I have not had any luck with like the putty that we have a putty. It always seems to dry out too quick, or it doesn't stay. It separates because the alcohol and the gas. Yeah, use simple tools. Use your brain. Try and grab a bucket if you can catch some of it. Whatever it is, just be aware of it. That stuff's running off somewhere, and we don't want to add to a whole other hazard.
Yeah, and that's we got to protect life, property, control the incident, and then a lot of the big things with the MVA is the environmental conservation.
Yeah, which is kind of the first time our mission statement at work is the first time I've seen something said in it that's not just life and fire, life and fire, life and fire. It also says, life, property, and conservation of the environment. That's pretty cool that we put that in there. But it puts it at forefront of our mind to consider those things.
And it's pretty simple to do.
Yeah.
Couple beads of speedy dry and call it a day. Now, I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's a federal thing, but as soon as I run out of speedy dry on my rig, I'm calling a level 0 hazmat, because what that does, it gets the DEC involved, and they get a spill number, and then as soon as that hazmat job is called, we can bill back the insurance companies to pay for. They have the whole matrix for how much does it cost for the fire truck to be there, how much does it cost for the manpower to be there, how many bags of speedy dry did we use, and we can recoup some of those costs off the insurance company.
Yeah, and it's some of it's built into. Yeah, if you actually look at your insurance charges, some of that is actually built in there. It'll be spelled out, itemized, specifically for instances such as that. So make sure you're using all resources available for those that maybe it's a smaller department or a place that doesn't have the funding to go, we're ease up on the speedy dry, guys. We only have so much. Start looking at alternative forms, and this is one of them. Anything else?
No, I think just a quick little one on MVAs. you can run into anything. Sometimes the most hazardous thing there are the people that you're going to deal with because they're mad that they just got into an MVA. And you got to calm them down.
It's all customer service when it comes down
Yeah.
to it. And the best line I ever heard in customer service is there's two types of customers. There's a customer from hell and the customer that's going through hell. And
Yep.
sometimes it's both. They went through one and phased into the other. So our job there is to, mitigate whatever the environmental issue, the car issue, the medical issue, and we might be the calming agent in the moment. Let's try not to overwork them. Yeah, that's a pretty good point.
Sometimes just having the police there sometimes amps them up. Sometimes you need them there because they need to be restrained. But
sometimes, but it's usually, we've seen both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where they're actually pretty calming. The current police chief in town, he's the man. You ever watch that guy work? While he's arresting you, somehow he can manage to make you feel comfortable for getting arrested.
Right.
He's just got away with people. He's very calming, direct, but he means business.
Yep.
And that's a great dude. Give him a lot of props. He should sponsor us.
So short little one on MVAs.
Yeah, short and sweet. We'll get back into it. We'll get into more on the EV stuff. We're holding off on that until we're well equipped and armed with everything that we want to talk about. Lithium in general, lithium ion in general that leads into EVs. We got a class that both of us, you already mentioned, that we're both in coming up just to help get the chemistry aspect down a little bit harder. And then our buddy Paul's going to be coming on to help discuss the EV car world and the tools that are out there. So we're looking forward to that. I got a couple other things in the pipe that we're kind of keeping hush for right now. We can see where that comes and how that develops.
I know you were short for time tonight, but I wanted to talk to you about your weekend of training that you did out there.
Oh man, boy. So every year, I guess I'll throw a little plug. So Gettsville Fire Department, or Fire District, I'm not sure if they're district or department, up in Amherst, New York, puts on a rapid intervention training every year. It's called GRIT, GRIT, and you can Google that, and they have a web page and everything, and sign up. It's usually the first week in April. I was very humbled and honored to be asked to come and help instruct. I by no means set this thing up. I have no part of it other than helping out at a station every year, and or for the last 2 years now. There's some of the brightest minds around come to this thing and do this massive training scenario. So what it is, it's a Saturday, Sunday. Instructors meet up Friday to go over their brief, have a little dinner, see all everything that they got to work with, and do some fine tuning. Saturday morning, 7 a.m. start. It's mini stations to prep for a set of Sunday evolutions. And they have everything you can think of about saving firemen when firemen need help. It's all revolves around grit. It's definitely not something that you want to send your probationary people through. Maybe come and watch type of thing. But it's designed to, so I did forcible entry this year, forcible entry station, helped out with that, but it's not the original, what is always called the quote unquote basic level. It's the next step up. It's not advanced techniques per se. It's just that you make the doors beefier. You make it an extremely tough scenario so that you really have to have an understanding and appreciation for your tools. Using them in the dark, knowing every fine detail to that tool without being able to see it. There's some heat added to that, heat element added to that, and then depending on what group you're stuffed with, whether you come with some peers that from your own organization or you get paired up with some new people, now you start having that little bit of that's once you throw those stimuli on there, you start competing and yelling at each other a little bit, and that's part of that learning curve is dealing with shit that's just wild. And that's one station. There was eight total. There's a maze station where they purposely get you into the mindset where as you're going through there trying to get a down fireman, you may have to use your either your UAC connection on your bottle or a RIT bottle that you bring in to do a hot fill or a buddy breather, depending on what systems show up that day. And it's all kind of student led on Sunday. They give you a giant scenario it's kind of like, let's say, I don't want to say a warehouse. Let's say, well, it's 2 stories, multiple rooms. It's all Connex containers. There is a burn room off the far end, and we're talking 2 stories. I think there's 8 total, 8 plus the 2 on the end. It doesn't matter. It's a giant maze for firefighters. Hoarding conditions, stairs, collapse sections, heavy lifting. To simulate washer and dryers because they couldn't get them donated. They took old filing cabinets, filled them with concrete. Like everything you can possibly imagine is in there. And to start, it's like a Mayday call. And these different crews are assigned. Now, going on in the background on the Saturday objective, there's also a command course that's running. So people that are newly appointed or newly minted bosses can go to this, or maybe it's chiefs that need to brush up on, see some of the latest and greatest coming down the pike. They get these like mini sessions, breakout sessions all day long for a command and control portion on Sunday during that evolution that each one of these teams are responding to as if they're on their own unit. It's a rig. You're each on a rig. There's no actual rig, but you're assigned and you're dispatched accordingly. That command class, you're in charge. And that's it's just cool. Nobody steps in unless it's something completely unsafe. As far as the fire plan and everything, that's all in there. You have instructors from all of it. There's a ton of instructors, even for the because there is a little bit of live fire that's there. There's the gentleman that developed the Pittsburgh drill. He comes up every year and runs a station and then gets involved. And when he gets involved, boy, does it look like fun. And a lot of the instructors end up walking away from this, and myself including, going, I should have signed up as a participant. Yeah. Because it looks like so much fun. Everybody's sweating.
So open to anybody?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
It usually fills up quick. I don't know what the cap out is, but it fills up. Paid in and volunteer, all the like. There's just a lot of volunteers that are eager to get after it out here and love this stuff. So that kind of, it's not that preference gets to them. They fill up the class really quickly. Yeah. So it's awesome to see. Brilliant minds. And the guys that construct some of this stuff, you have the mad scientists and then you have the mad carpenters, and you put those two together and you have this giant playground to work with.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, that's just about it. Already the text message came across. That was awesome. This was a great time. I want to go back next year. And that was just for this year. There's one kid who's never done it before texted me. He's like, dude, that was wild. He goes, I thought I was going to die. And said, not die, like, you know what I mean? But he was running out low on air. He was pushing himself to the extreme. He felt good coming out of that. And that's cool to hear. I'm like, don't, I got nothing to do with it. You need to go tell Gettsville, man, so that they can keep funding this thing. They can find funds. There's a lot of donation processes. They do a lot of events to raise money for it. It's something somebody joked around and said, it's hard to put in 100 hours. And we're not talking man hours, just 100 hours spent with each group each time out here building this thing for it all to be destroyed under 2 hours. It's like, that's crazy. So yeah, that was really cool.
That should about wrap it up then for tonight.
Yeah, I think that's it. Instagram doing all right?
Yeah, up above 5,000 now.
We're at over 5,000. Yeah. So congratulations. Yeah. I know you're running that thing like crazy. That's awesome to see. Glad that's getting traction and everything. Gotta be a good feeling.
Yeah. I know we're not up there with the big dogs, but whatever.
No, but it's fun to collaborate on some things with them. You've had a lot of messages back and forth and people asking questions, sometimes telling, but it's mostly in this constructive atmosphere. This is cool to be a part of this. I hope we don't let anybody down. I hope I don't let anybody down. I don't know how you feel.
No, like I said, this is just fun, just for fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Questions, comments, concerns, you can either DM the Instagram Fire from Two Windows, or you can hit us up through our email, and that's firefromtwowindows@gmail.com. That is all spelled out. There are no numbers. It's just letters. Send us a message. You like something we're doing? Great. Let us know. If you don't like something, let us know that too. We appreciate all feedback. Community driven, and yeah, we hope to keep this thing rolling. With that, if you got nothing else, everybody be safe.